Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Liminal Pathways podcast. I really appreciate all of the views, the listens, the shares, the follows, the five-star ratings. It really helps making this grassroots single person project and really helps me get the word out and just spread the news of what I'm doing as a passion project. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. As I mentioned in the last podcast episode, I just started a Patreon account where I will be doing more exclusive content. If you're interested in signing up over there on Patreon, that could be really fun. The next thing I wanted to say is next week, I have the privilege of I don't even want to say interviewing because it's literally just two people having a conversation. That's really what I see all of my guest interviewees as. Like, we're literally just two people talking about whatever comes up. And I'm very excited. And I just want to read a little bit of a blurb about him. So, his name is Ken. Ken has been a licensed clinical social worker since 2005 and a registered yoga teacher since 2006. Ever curious about the intersection of yoga and psychology, he completed his 500-hour level yoga therapy teacher training in 2010. In more recent years, in an attempt to understand his own being human and helping clients understand themselves, he's immersed himself in thanatology. Of course, that piques my interest. For folks who are not familiar, thanatology is the study of death and mortality, and non-ordinary mind states. He is deeply passionate about nudging the Western mental health paradigm in regards to safe, legal, and ethical integration of sacred plant medicines or psychedelics. So, this seems to be a theme that a lot of the people that I'm having on are talking about plant medicine, A. And B, what has also drawn me towards Ken is this conversation about thanatology. I am a Scorpio Pluto generation, Scorpio IC, fourth house cusp. The basement of my chart is deeply Scorpio. I have a Scorpio North Node, Scorpio part of fortune, and Scorpio is like the X-ray. Fixed water ruled by Mars and Pluto. Scorpio, for lack of a better term, is a deep penetrator of everything, emotions, the truth. Scorpio does not do any surface level anything. So I just wanted to put that out there. So today, as I'm recording, is Friday, May 22nd. Happy Gemini season. And I wanted to make an episode. So I'm doing things a little bit differently this month. Not that there's like a guidebook on how to do this, because it's my podcast and I can really do whatever I want. So I have been doing like two episodes per month, one with a guest, one solo. So kind of switching things up a little bit. And I'm going to talk about the astrology of May bridging into June. Yes, with a focus on Uranus, still the star of the show, squaring the nose into the summer. Um, and then on the 26th, so in 4 days, so I'm going to try to get this out before the 26th. And then on the 26th, I am going to sit down with Ken. So that may or may not come out before the end of May. But either way, we're on a floating rock. Does it even matter? No, it doesn't. So grab a coffee or tea. I want to talk about the astrology because I've had a little bit of an astrology hangover. So we started May, of course, this keeps pulling up, with full moon in Scorpio, and this full moon in Scorpio had fangs. Um, so that was May 1st, and then like on the 4th, Pluto. So all planets were direct, right? Painting this picture, it's like go time. Pluto, the planet of the underworld, stations retrograde. Days after, we have this I'm going to say it again, this penetrating full moon in Scorpio, dredging out scorpionic themes, inheritance, shared resources, sex, death and rebirth, transformation, phoenix from the ashes. So Taurus and Scorpio, in terms of polarity, they are sister signs, right? Taurus is fixed earth, embodiment, and Scorpio is like the depths of, I mean, I think of all the water signs for the ocean, but specifically Pisces, but like Scorpio's like spicy ocean water. Those who understand, understand. Okay. So we have this intensity with Scorpio. Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio, is going retrograde, reviewing, judging, and something else. So I haven't felt like the zhuzh to record an astrology podcast. And then it wasn't really until the new moon in Taurus that I was like really feeling that zhuzh again. And part of what I want to talk about is like the embodiment of astrology and how literal it is. And for me, as someone who's been into astrology for half my life, studying it pretty seriously for like the last 7 years, honestly, like it really does become embodied. And I want to talk about that because I feel like that can help people who are on their journey understand how transits impact them, the way that they are natally astrologically wired. And I feel like a lot of this has to do with natal conjunctions of your sun because your sun is this hot ball of pressure, of energy. So let's just say that you natally have your sun conjunct Mercury. Communication is going to be a huge part of your life. Sun conjunct Mars, the way you take action, your drive. So taking a look at planets that are, yes, making any aspects, but specifically the conjunction, and then to go even deeper, you talk about combust and cazimi because that is the thing. So new moon in Taurus. So we had that full moon in Scorpio on the first. So that new moon in Scorpio is like last weekend. What am I talking about? So that was like the 17th, 18th of May. And that new moon was crazy. I talked about this in the last astrology forecast episode. We had a new moon at 25 degrees Taurus conjunct Mercury in Taurus. And Taurus, fixed Earth, ruled by Venus. Venus was in Gemini, the twins. The feminine polarity making a sextile with Mars. That was in Aries, making a conjunction with Chiron. The fact that I just like ripped that off because it's like I felt it. And for me personally, I have talked about this ad nauseum, but my midheaven is 25 degrees of Taurus. So like a lot of public eye, public image, and part of why I am doing this podcast. And let me know in the comments if you relate to this. How many of you have like a desire to be seen, heard, understood, but yet like simultaneously you're like, no, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm not perfect? Again, like maybe that's just like the Virgo risingness. But like having times, even like in the past few weeks, I'm like, do I just want to like delete all my social media? Do I want to delete this podcast? Like now I got to sit down with this. I'm like, Sarah, like what are you running from? What is the worst that can happen? That someone's gonna rate your podcast 1 star? Like, okay, like this is your legacy. This is how you're choosing to show up in this current moment of time, which is all we ever have is this current moment of time. So let me piggyback that back to the new moon that was on my midheaven. So after that, the sun so goes from being on the fixed star Algol, which is Medusa, into the Pleiades. And I also felt when I talk about the embodiment of astrology, and Taurus is all about embodiment, like the energetic shift from Taurus season into Gemini season and seeing how that overlays with the fixed stars. And if you haven't delved into the world of fixed stars, I highly recommend it. There's Astro Seek, and no, I'm not getting paid to sponsor them. I just love them. I Gonna pull up the June 2026 transit and Astroseek and totally rough off that. I really enjoy that. And then for my phone, I use time passages. I've been a time passages girly since 2020. Again, these are not paid advertisements, just astrology tools and apps that are very helpful for me that are not co-star. So definitely go check those out. So the sun illuminating Algol, where we feel beheaded, the Pleiades, where we may not feel at home, um, anaretic Taurus heading into Gemini. And this is what I want to talk about because coming off of this new moon at the late degree of Taurus, also having this very potent mythological energy to it, we had some conjunctions that I talked about in the last episode, but I always feel the need to like bridge it together, like the contextualization. So Mercury, the ruler of Gemini and Virgo, communication, making a conjunction with Uranus. Oh, and this new moon in Taurus was the first new moon that we've had in Taurus with Uranus not being in the sign of Taurus, being at is either 0 or 1 degree Gemini. So there's still like a 5 to 6 degree conjunction out of sign conjunction. So it's like bridging that gap between the fixed Earth Venusian pleasure-seeking embodiment of Taurus into, live wire, frenetic, mercurial Gemini, where Uranus is going to be for the next 7 years. So it's like Taurus passing the baton to Gemini. And I say that also because Mercury and Uranus being the higher ruler of Mercury, making that conjunction into Gemini. And when I talk about the embodiment of astrology, I had such a headache and like I knew it was like spiritual, like my third eye. And then that was Mercury conjunct Uranus and Gemini. Today, the sun being conjunct Uranus, where Mercury was, and then the sun again looking at it symbolically, illuminating. That's what I'm saying. If you have conjunctions of the sun is literally illuminating whatever planet that is conjunct, or maybe it's conjunct the North Node, right? That is speaking about your karmic purpose or your South Node. Like, so if your sun is conjunct any six stars, any of your natal planets, let me know and we can kind of work out archetypally what that means for you, okay? So I do want to keep this episode on the shorter side. I don't have any book reviews for today. So I just felt the desire to come in and talk about like the embodiment of astrology. When you feel it, you feel the transits. And linking this to, for an example, last year, 2025, when I had Uranus transit conjunct the midheaven, and it's like that new moon is hitting that spot, and the angles are so sensitive. So I'm going to leave it at that. And for educational purposes, talk about the astrology of June 2026, which I might need to title this episode Uranus Part 2, because Uranus is like, I'm gonna shake shit up. So let me get the June transits up. Okay, so I know I said I'm doing June astrology, but I would be remiss to bring up the fact that not only are we beginning May 2026 with a full moon, we're ending that sucker with a full moon. So we are ending May with a full moon in Sagittarius, Sun in Gemini, Moon in Sagittarius. Jupiter in Cancer will be ruling this moon. Jupiter is direct in Cancer, thank God. And Jupiter will be entering Leo at the end of June. Yay! But I do want to spend a little bit more time talking about this full moon that we're going to have at the end of the month because it is on a fixed star. So I started looking at fixed stars a few years ago. And when you're into history, mythology, lore, it's just very, very interesting. And I wanted to look up this 9 degree Sagittarius. Again, my mind's going in a million places, and I do want to backtrack back to what I was discussing regarding the fixed stars at late Taurus and early Gemini. So 26 Taurus. Algol, the Gorgon's head, primitive female sexuality, strangulation, beheading, danger to throat and neck, murder, violence, mass catastrophe, the evil one, the demon star, passionate, intense, hysterical, very unfortunate. Damn. 29 degrees and 58 minutes Taurus, Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. Accidents, blindness, violence, homosexuality, feminine power, unfortunate, constellation of seven stars. Prefer Alcyone. Okay, 0 degrees and 0 minutes of Gemini, which the Mercury, Uranus, and the Sun Uranus, the conjunctions that we've been having in Gemini, I said Germany, Gemini, aren't exactly conjunct Alcyone, but I do want to read about it. So Alcyone, central star of the Pleiades, ambition, honor, and glory, trouble with the opposite sex. Very interesting. So as I'm looking for the 9 degree Sagittarius, I do want to talk about fixed stars. And if you have fixed stars, I have fixed star conjunct my sun sign. So illuminating the qualities of the fixed star. My ascendant is conjunct a fixed star. So I really encourage you to do your own mythology and your own deep dives. Okay, I found it. So 9 degree Sagittarius is Antares, heart of the Scorpion. So a royal star, the archangel Uriel, the watcher of the West, spirit of adventure, obstinacy, injuries, two eyes, honors, sudden loss, stubborn, suspicious, violent, several marriages. So again, this is the fixed star Antares, spelled Antares. So even though this is in Sagittarius, it's very interesting. I'm getting like big Scorpio vibes because of the red, the supergiant, the Scorpius constellation, the heart of the Scorpio. So very interesting stuff. Okay. Let me try not to spend 1,000 years yapping because we all know I have a tendency to do that. And where is it? Here we go. Okay. So, yeah, we have that full moon in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter and Cancer, as I said. And then the next day, the 1st of June, Mercury, the communicator, the, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on words? Hermes, hello, brain. The communicator is entering Cancer. So going from Mercury ruled Gemini, Mercury loves being in Gemini. So the tone can be softened, perhaps, with Mercury entering in moon ruled softy Cancer. So on June 9th, we have a very auspicious transit, which I like. So we have the two benefics, Venus, the planet of love, pleasure, beauty, conjunct Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter expands what it touches, and Jupiter and Venus are kissing at 25 degrees and 46 minutes of Cancer. I love this personally because that anything in the late degrees of Cancer is going to make sextiles and trines with a lot of my planets. So that seems very auspicious for me personally. But again, look at that chart for you. Where does 25 degrees Cancer fall in your chart? Does it make any squares? Does it make any oppositions? Any conjunction? Conjunction, junction. What's your function? So 4 days after that, on the 13th of June, Venus is going to enter the sun-ruled heart-led sign of Leo, where Jupiter will enter at the end of the month. And I feel like that Jupiter and Leo could definitely be a whole podcast episode in and of itself. So Venus entering Leo, maybe more boldness and heart-centered leadership when it comes to love and passion. On the 15th of June, we have a new moon in Gemini. New moon in Gemini at 24 degrees, ruled by Mercury. Let's pull up the chart and see where Mercury is going to be. All right. Aw, Mercury in Cancer. I like this. So June seems I'm just getting like intuitively very good month in terms of like love and relationships. Which is interesting. I just said that because on the 19th of June, and I know it's going to retrograde back into Aries, but Chiron, the planet, not planet, Centaur, right? Our biggest wound, that existential wound, and also where we have great abilities to, even though that wound will like never be healed, it's like how can we heal ourselves and others? So Chiron has been inflamed and angry in Aries since like 2018. We had that Mars and Chiron conjunction in Aries with the new moon in Taurus that was just like inflame inflamed city. So it seems like Chiron bridging from Aries to Taurus is like going from like the wound of like the infant wound because Aries is like the first sign, like the baby, the infant of the zodiac, like here I am, to like Venusian Taurus, like where am I wounded in like how I take up space and like embody. So like I feel like the wound is going to go from more of like that like masculine primal Aries wound to like a Taurus wound of like being self-conscious in your body. Um, so Chiron, as I had just mentioned, is going to do a little preview into Taurus. I think just like over the summer, retrograde back into Taurus, my bad, into Aries for a little bit, and then it'll do its thing and go back into Taurus. So really for the next few years, right, we're gonna have all these outer planets in these masculine signs, these air and fire signs, and then Taurus will be Taurus. Chiron will be in Taurus. So we'll have that like quote unquote feminine energy. But yeah, we're not gonna have outer planets in water. Like once Jupiter goes into Leo, oh my gosh, I know so many astrologers are talking about this. But the Jupiter in Leo opposing Pluto in Aquarius, then the Saturn in Aries, like a lot of that air and fire epoch, so to speak. So yeah, Chiron enters Taurus on the 19th, and then 2 days later we have the summer solstice. Yay! Sun entering Cancer, the longest day of the year. And I'm just gonna look at the astrology weather of the summer solstice. All right, this is nice. We have the sun in Taurus, moon in Virgo, Mercury in Cancer, Venus in Leo. It's giving like very passionate, sensitive, romantic. Mars in Taurus. I know Mars doesn't love to be in Taurus, but that's kind of sexy. Jupiter at 28 degrees of Cancer, almost at that 29th degree. I just got like a vision of like biting into like a juicy peach at the beach. Like I'm so for real right now. Let's see, North Node at 3 degrees of Pisces. Yes, the nodes will be shifting into Aquarius and Leo over the summer. Um, Fun times, fun times. So, yeah, on June 28th, Mars is going to enter Gemini. So, the sign of action, drive, being in that sign. Mars in Gemini is a little bit difficult for me, not gonna lie, because of my natal. Um, so my natal Mercury is in Gemini. So, like anytime Mars goes over that Mercury, like the impulse issues are already there for me because my Mercury squares my Mars and Chiron. So Gemini and Virgo. So they're all like ruled by Mercury. So like that's like all like the impulsion. It's just like anytime any transiting planet honestly is in Gemini and it's in my 10th house, like I'm like where I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna do now? Yeah, so Mars and Gemini. Check what house you have Gemini in, because that's where the Mars transit is really going to impact you. And then, oh, geez Louise, the next day we have Mercury retrograde in Cancer. You can't make this up. All right, so Mars is going to be in Gemini. The ruler of Mars is stationing retrograde. So I was just saying, like, there are a lot of like romantic energy and like, yeah, a lot of things, like multiple things can meet true at the same time. Mercury retrograde in Cancer. It's giving some drama, perhaps. Um, Oh yeah, no, it's giving drama. It's giving drama. Okay, so just to recap what I just said. So the 28th, we got Mars entering Gemini. Next day, you got Mercury retrograde in Cancer with a full moon in Capricorn. All right, you got Sun in Cancer, ruled by the moon, feelings, emotions, opposing the moon in Capricorn. The moon in Capricorn is sad. Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. If you know anyone with a natal moon in Capricorn, 9.5 out of 10 times they are prone to slash have dealt with slash are dealing with depression. So this can be sobering because it's a full moon with Mercury literally stationing retrograde with a 3-degree orb conjunction from Jupiter. So Jupiter is enhancing the communication in emotional Cancer. Um, yeah, but again, it's like embody. I'm not like fear mongering. Oh, like stay inside, don't talk to anyone. Like, no, I'm not saying that, but it's like using astrology like as a tool to like be mindful. Oh, Mercury stationing retrograde in Cancer in my 11th house, so let me be mindful of 11th house themes, right? And then, yeah, to tie this up with a neat little bow, on June 30th, Jupiter enters Leo. So Jupiter stays in a sign for about a year. So Jupiter in Leo, I just wanted to take a look at this chart. Okay, yeah. So oh gosh, Jupiter enters Leo, we have Neptune and Pluto both at 4 degrees. Neptune at 4 degrees Aries, Pluto at retrograde at 4 degrees Aquarius. Oy. Yeah, Uranus at 3 degrees of Gemini. So we have Uranus and Pluto trine and making a sextile with Neptune. So that's the outer planets communicating in fire and air. And this is where I'm going to leave off because I'm going to have to do a deeper dive at another time. So Uranus at 3 degrees of Gemini squaring the nodes. So anytime that there's a planet squaring the nodes is like seen as like a skipped step in like evolutionary astrology. So I can give an example in my chart. It's not exact, it's like out of sign. My Uranus at 29 degrees of Capricorn squares my North Node at like 1 degree of Scorpio, 2 degrees, depending on the chart you're looking at. So that's like a 3 degree orb. I still count that, especially looking at my Uranus, is at a critical degree inherently and makes a lot of really important aspects. It's like part of the yod, whatever. So looking at not only transiting Uranus, but natal Uranus and the archetype of that and how it impacts me. So when in 2025 for me, when Uranus went over the midheaven, it was like, okay, this is like inescapable, this is sudden, this is abrupt, but like this is what your soul evolutionarily like signed up for. So it's like we're gonna have this on a global world galactic scale, right? North Node and Pisces going to switch over to being in Aquarius. Wow. Okay, yeah, South Node in Virgo going over the fixed star Regulus, and then that South Node will be in Leo with Jupiter. I think that's all for today, folks. If you find my podcast helpful, please consider subscribing to my Patreon, sharing this with your friends, liking, following, anything that really helps spread the word out. Again, this is a one gal grassroots podcast, just a girl doing doing what she loves and being a little silly goose along the way. So thank you for listening and have a great day. Bye bye.